What's good, everyone? Welcome back to a brand new Amazon video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the most physically demanding positions at Amazon. Now, in this video, I'm only going to be discussing the positions that I have done, which includes stow, pick, pack, water spider, and inbound shipping dock. So I'm only going to be concluding those positions. I haven't done a lot of other positions at Amazon, and I haven't worked at a delivery station or a sorting center before. So this is only going to include those at FCs and the ones that I've done. And yeah, before we get started, go ahead and leave a like on the video. Go ahead and subscribe down below if you haven't already. We're trying to hit 15K by the end of the year. But now let's start off at 5. We're gonna go from the easiest one basically to the most physically demanding at number 1. So now let's go ahead and start off with number 5, which is stow. Stow to me is easily by far the least physically demanding position ever. Literally all you're doing is having the water spider give you work. The water spider is already doing half of your work pretty much, putting the work on your sled. All you have to do, grab the stuff on your sled, open the box, grab an item and put it into a pod. You're doing that all day long. There's hardly any squatting involved because the pods aren't super low. There's hardly any squatting involved. You use a ladder a little bit, but that's not really physically demanding in my opinion. All you're doing is grabbing small items. There is big items sometimes, especially when you get like cat food or big Gatorade boxes. And when you get things like that, it can be a little bit heavy, but I think stow is definitely number 5, and it is definitely the least physically demanding position there is at Amazon. And now for number 4, we have pack. Pack is definitely not that physically demanding pretty much at all. You do have to squat a little bit to get to the lower bins when you're picking out the items on the wall, but other than that, there's hardly ever any super heavy items. Of course, it is annoying to get like those, again, the cat litter, the Gatorade, the same stuff that you get in stow. It is annoying to get that in pack, but at the end of the day, you're pretty much doing the same thing. It's only slightly more physically demanding than stow because you do have to bend down a lot to get the items that are in the lower bins. And then of course, sometimes you get the really big 296 boxes, and when you get those and you have a lot of stuff to put in there, it can get a little bit heavy, but all you have to do is push that box. All you have to do is like pack the box and then push it onto the sled or the little conveyor belt, and that's pretty much it. I think pack is definitely not that physically demanding either. Slightly more physically demanding than stow, but for the most part, I mean, it's not really that physically demanding. And now number 3, this is where it does get a little bit slightly more physically demanding. It's not extremely bad, but it's a little bit of wear and tear on your legs, and that is pick. Pick to me, not that bad, of course. It's kind of the opposite of stow. Instead of putting the items in the bin, you're picking the items out of the bin and putting them into totes. All that part is easy, but the thing and the difference is that a lot of pick stations are RSAW stations. For those who don't know what RSAW stations are, they just involve a little bit more mechanics, but they're raised up about maybe like a foot, maybe like 8 inches to a foot higher than stow stations. So when the pods come and you have to pick an item from one of the bottom, like maybe like the bottom 2 rows, you have to squat down a lot to get there because they are super low. Because of the way that RSAW stations are raised off of the ground compared to stow stations, which are just flat on the ground, RSAW stations are raised slightly off the ground. So whenever you have to get an item in the very bottom pod, you have to squat down a lot. And honestly, in my experience, a lot of the items that they want you to pick are in that bottom slot, and it really sucks. You're squatting all day long. It's definitely a workout. It's definitely a little bit physically demanding. I don't pick too often, but when I do, because I'm not really used to it, my legs, or my thighs specifically, are burning the next day because of so much squatting. Of course, you could just bend over with your back if you want to, but that's gonna hurt your back, and that would be horrible. So don't do that. But yeah, I would put pick at number 3. It's definitely not like extremely crazy, but it is a nice little workout, especially for the legs, especially squatting all day. Definitely good for the legs, and overall not that physically demanding, but it's also not super easy. And now for number 2, can you guess which one it is? All we have left is shipping dock and water spider. Which one do you think that I put as the second most physically demanding? Now, this really depends on what position you're doing, but I put shipping dock at number 2. It could very much be number 1, and I'm willing to say that it is the most physically demanding. I'm definitely willing to say that, but it depends on what you're doing. So if you were actually being the one to physically unload the trucks and actually go in deep into the trucks, you're the one who's taking down the wall, putting all the items onto the sled. If you're doing that, then I would definitely say, yeah, this is definitely the most physically demanding one. So if you're doing that, that is definitely number 1, and you are definitely doing the most physically demanding work at Amazon if you're working in the shipping dock and you're unloading the trucks. However, if you're the one that is not unloading the trucks, but you're waiting for the items to come down the sled or the conveyor belt that the truck unloader, that the first person that I mentioned, the guy who's actually physically unloading the wall, if you're the person who is actually waiting for those items to come down, then I would say this is probably number 2, because all you're really doing is just standing up all day. And don't get me wrong, I say all you're really doing, it is a lot of work, but It's definitely not as much as the person who's actually unloading the truck, but most people are usually the ones who are just, you know, putting the boxes onto pallets, building the pallets, wrapping them up, and then sending them off to the stores. If you're one of those people, it's physically demanding for sure, because you're getting all of the huge heavy boxes. All of those Gatorades that the stores get, you're doing like multiple of those all day long. All of the huge boxes that have a bunch of heavy stuff inside of it, you're grabbing that, you're picking it up, you're putting it on pallets all day long. It could definitely be a strain on your back if you're not doing it correctly. And if you are doing it correctly, your knees, your legs, your calves, everything is going to be feeling it. It's going to be burning all day. This is like the squatting within PIC, but times 10. And then you're also using your arms a lot because there's just so much heavy items. So I definitely think the shipping dock is number 2. Unless you're the one who's actually physically unloading the truck, then I would definitely say it's number 1. So it goes hand in hand with number 1, which is water spider. Now again, this is just my personal opinion. You guys probably think something different. This is all opinion, this is all subjective. You guys might find this completely opposite. Let me know down in the comments below what you think the most physically demanding positions are at Amazon. What would you put at number 1, number 2? Whatever it may be though, I would definitely put water spider at number 1. And that's because water spiders are not only using the pallet jack, sometimes you get really heavy pallets on the pallet jack. Like I remember one time I had this huge tower, the huge pallet, huge case of nothing but like, I think it was like sparkling water or something like that, and it was a huge pallet of it, and I was just dragging the pallet jack. It was so heavy. The pallet jack was hardly keeping up with that pallet. Times like that is when water spider is extremely physically demanding. But then not only that, not only are you pulling the pallet, which for the most part is easy, but sometimes you can get those heavier cases. Not only you're doing that, but you're also kind of doing the same thing the shipping dock is doing, or kind of the opposite. Instead of putting the items onto the pallet, you're actually lifting the items up off of the pallet and then putting them onto the store's sled. So you're doing that all day long, and that can be pretty physically demanding pretty much. You know, opening the pallet, putting all the materials on the pallet onto the side, grabbing all the items in there, opening the boxes, putting them onto the sled all day long for multiple different people. Sometimes you have to water spider for like up to 10 people. When you're doing it for that many people, it sucks. And then not only that, you're carrying the heavy boxes of corrugate recycling. Sometimes stores will cut them up and fold up their cardboard boxes and throw them in the corrugate recycling. When you have one of those stores and they go all the way to the top like that, and it gets really heavy. Sometimes you got to push 2 or 3 of those at the same exact time. That can be really heavy. You're also walking all day long down the mile. You're walking all day long, so you're constantly on your feet, constantly moving. Unlike shipping dock, where for the most part you're staying in the same spot, with water spider you are constantly up and down the aisle. You're also doing this in a time rush because you have to make sure your stores always have work, and you have to make sure that everything's going right with the VRCs. So you're also having to do it on a time crunch. You're having to rush a lot. There is a lot of rushing involved in water spider. It's really fast paced, almost like a restaurant. If you've ever worked at a restaurant, it's very fast paced like that. And I think that's definitely what makes it the most physically demanding, in my opinion, just because you are not only on a time crunch, you're having to do this stuff super fast. You're dealing with all the same exact heavy items that shipping dock dealt with. You're also dealing with the Gaylords or the corrugate recyclings. You're pulling the pallet jack all day. You're moving around. You're walking so much. I definitely do believe the water spider is most definitely the most physically demanding position at Amazon. So that's what I would put at number 1. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this list. I know a lot of you are probably going to be disagreeing with me. Let's just keep it simple though. It's just my list. It's all subjective, and that's what I think personally. And yeah, with that being said, I'm going to end that video there, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, leave a like. If you're not already subscribed, what are you doing? Let's try to get this community to 15K this year. Go ahead and subscribe down below. I make all types of Amazon content, whether it's tips and tricks or whether it's just fun videos like this, lists, all types of videos. Go ahead and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch you all in the next one. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching this video. Peace.